The rain fell hard that night, drenching the cracked sidewalks outside Westfield Community College. The lamps flickered weakly, reflecting in shallow puddles that trembled with each drop. Inside the cafeteria, under the dull hum of fluorescent lights, sat Liam, a 19-year-old nursing student whose clothes were as worn as his spirit. His hands trembled slightly as he folded the piece of paper that contained his last few dollars for the week. He hadn't eaten since morning, but that wasn't what hurt most. What hurt was knowing that tomorrow was the spring formal, and he had no one to go with, not because he didn't want to, but because he simply couldn't afford to ask. He'd seen her before. Emily, the quiet nurse who volunteered at the college clinic. She was in her early 20s with kind eyes and a smile that could calm even the most nervous patient. She wasn't like the others. She spoke to everyone, no matter who they were. When she walked by, the world seemed to pause for a moment, as if even life itself respected her presence. Liam never imagined she'd notice someone like him. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the goodness that still exists in this world, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. It helps more stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. Liam worked nights at a gas station, cleaning floors and pumping fuel to pay for his textbooks. Every coin mattered, every dream felt distant. His classmates came from well-off families, drove cars that cost more than his tuition, and spoke of vacations and fashion brands he could barely pronounce. Yet none of that mattered when he saw Emily treating an old man S-wound with such care it brought tears to his eyes. That day, Liam made a decision that would change his life forever. He decided to ask her to the dance. It took him 3 days to gather the courage. He practiced in front of the mirror of his tiny rented room, the kind with peeling wallpaper and a flickering bulb. "Would you like to go to the dance with me?" he whispered, each time imagining how she might laugh, how she might politely decline, or worse, how she might pity him. Still, his heart told him he had to try. For once, he wanted to do something brave. The next afternoon, he found her sitting by the college fountain, her white nurse's uniform catching the sunlight. She was scribbling notes, probably reviewing patient data. Liam's palms sweated as he approached. His heart pounded so loudly he thought she might hear it. He managed to stammer out the question, his voice barely audible over the fountain's splash. To his disbelief, she smiled, not mockingly but gently, as if she saw something sincere in his trembling words. "I'd love to," she said. For the first time in months, Liam felt alive. That night, he skipped dinner again so he could buy a small corsage. It wasn't fancy, just a single white rose wrapped in cheap ribbon, but he chose it carefully, thinking it matched her grace. He borrowed a friend's jacket, polished his worn shoes, and rehearsed how he'd thank her for saying yes. When the night of the dance arrived, the hall was radiant with fairy lights and laughter. Students danced beneath chandeliers while soft music played. Liam stood awkwardly by the door, scanning the crowd for Emily. For a moment he wondered if she'd changed her mind, but then she appeared at the top of the stairs. Everyone turned. She wasn't T in her uniform this time. She wore a flowing blue dress that shimmered like moonlight on water. Her hair was tied loosely, and she carried herself with quiet confidence that silenced the room. Liam could hardly breathe. Every insecurity, every memory of hunger and loneliness melted away as she walked toward him. "You look beautiful," he said softly, offering the flower. She smiled and took it, and for that night the world felt fair again. They danced awkwardly at first, laughing at their missteps, and slowly the rhythm carried them. For once, Liam wasn't the poor kid. He wasn't the one who couldn't afford lunch. He was simply a boy dancing with a girl who saw him for who he was. But stories like this never stay simple for long. Later that night, when Emily stepped away to take a phone call, Liam overheard 2 students whispering near the refreshment table. "That's Emily Carter," one said. "Her father's the CEO of Silverline Medical. The guy owns half the hospitals in the state. The words hit Liam like cold water. CEO's daughter. He froze, his world spinning. He looked at Emily across the room, laughing softly as she waved to someone. Everything inside him collapsed. He didn't stay to say goodbye. He left the hall quietly, the rain starting again as he walked into the night. The white rose pinned to his jacket had begun to wilt. In his mind, he replayed every second, her kindness, her laughter, and it all now felt like a cruel mistake. How could he, a boy with holes in his shoes, ever think he belonged in her world? The next morning he didn't go to class. He stayed in his room, staring at the ceiling, his stomach empty, his heart heavier than ever. But as evening fell, there was a knock on his door. When he opened it, Emily stood there holding an umbrella and 2 paper cups of coffee. She smiled softly. "You left before I could say thank you," she said. Liam's throat tightened. He tried to speak, but no words came. "You think I didn't know what people say about my family?" she continued. "I work as a nurse because I want to help people, not because of where I come from. I said yes to you because you're kind, not because of who you aren't." Tears burned behind Liam's eyes. No one had ever spoken to him like that, with honesty and respect. She handed him one of the coffees. "You don't have to run from kindness," she said. "Sometimes it's what you deserve." That night, Liam learned that wealth isn't measured by money, but by heart. Emily continued volunteering, and they began spending time together after her shifts, studying, sharing meals, and talking about dreams that seemed impossible but suddenly felt within reach. She helped him apply for a scholarship. He helped her volunteer at a shelter where he once stayed as a child. Slowly, their lives intertwined in quiet, meaningful ways. Months later, when Liam received his scholarship acceptance letter, Emily was there. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "See? You were never small, Liam. You just needed someone to remind you." He would never forget that moment. The warmth, the tears, the feeling of being seen. Years passed. Liam became a registered nurse, known for his compassion and humility. One day, he stood on the stage of a medical conference, invited to speak about the power of empathy in healthcare. In the front row sat Emily and her father, the CEO he once feared. After his speech, the older man shook his hand firmly and said, "My daughter always told me you were special. I see now that she was right." Life had come full circle. The boy who once skipped meals to buy a flower now healed others for a living, and the girl who could have lived in privilege chose instead to walk beside those who had nothing. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Leave a comment to remind the world that kindness still matters, that no heart is too small to make a difference. Special request, please comment, "Kindness lives on," if you believe that love and compassion can change a life forever.